Hello and welcome to episode number 120 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, iHeartRadio, and wherever you stream your podcasts. This is Jason Finelli, the esports and gaming insider for Fox PHL The Gambler, and it is the end of 2022. I'm recording this on Thursday night, the 22nd, which means we are, 9 days away from New Year's Eve, meaning 10 days away from 2023. And I figured no time like the present to do the 2022 Wiz Wit Awards. That's correct. We are here once again with the awards for the best games of the year. We will start with 8 special categories, then go into the top 10, starting with 10 through 6 in segment number 2, and finally 5 through 1 with some honorable mentions in segment number 3. Let's not waste any time and get into the first specialty award, and that is called, because I like to name the specialty awards, Big Dork, the 2,000 Calorie Diet Award. And I call it this because it is something that I have played daily since it came out. It's basically a fancy way of saying best ongoing game that released in 2022. And that goes to a game that before it even existed, I would have laughed in your face if you told me this was coming, and then it became one of the surprise hits of the year, and that is Disney Dreamlight Valley. The marriage of Disney and Animal Crossing is much more natural than I expected when the villagers of Animal Crossing become famous Disney characters from every era that I grew up with and that my girls are currently growing up with. And you're completing tasks not unlike what you would do in Animal Crossing. You're fishing, you're cooking, you're picking, using a pickaxe to dig for gems, which is admittedly different than Animal Crossing, but you're doing all these things, you're restoring all these memories. The one thing I will say that Disney Dreamlight Valley has over Animal Crossing is an overarching story, where instead of you just being like a villager in a town or the mayor or something like that, you used to be like, and they treat it like it's a big surprise, but anybody going in can figure it out from the first cutscene that you were a child, you created this imaginary world, and then you grew up and left, and then the grown-up you comes back and has to restore everything because everybody forgot in this big event called the Forgetting, and all these thorns and like evil vines have grown, and you basically have to restore the place. It's a really, really cool story, and it's really cool to see how all the Disney characters, fit into it. Not only that, but it's a game that I can play with my kids, and anytime I can do that, I appreciate it. Fall Guys, and that's not so much Fortnite, but Fall Guys would have fallen in this category as well. Got real big into, quote, the Bean Game this year with them. But Disney Dreamlight Valley came out this year, so I gave the nod there. A great game. If you have never played it, check it out. And it is the winner of the 2,000 Calorie Diet Award, a.k.a. Best Daily Play or Best Ongoing Game of the Year. Next up is an award called the Perfect Bite. This is my favorite trailer of the year, and there were a ton. There were a lot of very good trailers. This was actually tougher to narrow down than I expected, even with a lack of big central events, with maybe like 3 or 4 coming to mind, 3 of them being hosted or produced by Jeff Keighley's team. So he kind of cornered the market in big unveiling shows with the Game Awards, Summer Game Fest, and Gamescom. But I think my favorite trailer of the year actually comes from a State of Play, specifically the one in June 2022, and that belongs to the reveal, the full reveal, I should say, not the tease, the full reveal of Street Fighter 6. I loved that trailer, not just because of the characters it showed, not just because of the fighting gameplay. You kind of know what you're getting when you start a Street Fighter. It's the other things that it showed, like the world tour mode, where we're going to be like in a third-person action sort of game where we can fight any random person on the street. We can add moves from the arsenals of the fighters themselves into our arsenal, and that's awesome. I love that idea. And then the battle hub, where it's like the online area, featured heavily in both of the betas, where not only can you play Street Fighter 6, but there are classic games to play as well, that you can play with other people online. Just two really, really cool modes, bookending the actual just normal versus mode, arcade modes, stuff like that. It shows a willingness by the current team to expand their horizons in a way that the previous regime, I think, was not quite willing to do. And I think it's really putting a spotlight on the future of Street Fighter as a whole, and that future is now very bright. I am very excited for Street Fighter 6 in the same way I was excited for 5, and that ended up disappointing me, but there's a lot more optimism around this one, and that reveal was a big start of it. So Perfect Bite, Best Trailer Award, Street Fighter 6 reveal from State of Play in June. Next up, we have the musical morsel, my favorite soundtrack of the year. I should say best soundtrack of the year. I had a lot of favorites this year. In fact, I probably should even narrow it down or broaden it a little more and just say a soundtrack I want to highlight. Because if I had to list my favorite soundtracks, this one might not be at the very top, but the one that would be at the very top is mentioned later on in this episode. So I wanted to make this award, or all these awards, specifically for games that would not have featured elsewhere, if that makes sense. So one of my favorite soundtracks of the year that I'm giving the Musical Morsel Award, and it's one that you should be paying attention to, is Metal Hellsinger. If you have not heard of Metal Hellsinger, it is a first-person shooter where you play as a demon, killing other demons, but you're doing it in rhythm with heavy metal music. Most of them, I think, or if not all of them, are original songs, but they're sung by, or performed by, established people in the heavy metal community, including one Serj Tankian, the lead singer of System of a Down, plus many others. Stygia is like the main theme that people know, so if you want to listen to a song, listen to that one, and then imagine shooting demons to it. And then the more you're in rhythm, the more you're keeping time with the song, the better you score. So it's got that extra challenge in there as well. Very, very cool concept. Soundtrack is incredible, and the gameplay is good too. That helps. Definitely going to be a top game of 2022 when you look back and think about the cool original ideas that came from this year. Metal Hellsinger is definitely going to be one of them, and the soundtrack is popping. So, Musical Morsel Award, Metal Hellsinger. If you just want to headbang and throw your devil horns up and rock out for a while, great soundtrack. And like I said, it helps that the game is good too. The next award is Back 4 Seconds, and this is my favorite remake, remaster, collection of the year. It's a game or games that are returning from a previous era, a previous time, and were put on modern consoles this year. And there was actually a very healthy selection of these this year. Your Capcom Fighting Collection was very, very cool. There's another one being mentioned later on in the show as an honorable mention. For a game that I'll get into in a little bit. But if I'm thinking about the top experience, one of the top experiences I had with a remaster, remake collection, what have you, this award has to go to Atari 50, the Anniversary Collection. It's not just the collection of games. It's not just the fact that there are over 100 old Atari games on this thing. Not that those games are very complicated, and they're small, so they're easily fit into a situation like this. But the fact that they took that opportunity to not just make it a collection of games, but to make it an entire playable documentary, basically, of the history of Atari, complete with design documents and old advertisements, both print and old commercials. As I said in my review for Game Informer, with hindsight, it's hysterical to hear the announcer say, coming in January 1983, and the kid go, ooh, E.T. That makes me laugh. But just seeing all these different time capsules in this giant package, with interviews with the people who were involved at the time, and obviously the games themselves, and the handful of games that are also remade for the modern era. Just a really cool package, lovingly put together, clearly by Digital Eclipse, and something that I think everyone should play, whether you were a current gamer who's not really familiar with the past, an old head like me who's played a little bit of everything, or it's something you can show someone who might have fallen out. Perfect example. I brought this down to visit my parents, my daughter's grandparents, my parents, down the Jersey Shore, and my mother used to be a huge Centipede fan. So I told her that this was here and that Centipede was on it, and she asked to play it. She took the Pro Controller for the Switch. I don't have, obviously, an Atari joystick, just have the Pro Controller. And within the second run, she was crushing it. It was like getting back on a bike. And just seeing that and the power that had bringing this game back to the forefront was awesome. So if you're history minded and you want to check out some older stuff from yesteryear, the games themselves are not all going to impress you. They are very rudimentary. This is Atari we're talking about, but the overall package surrounding it, I think, makes it a great release, and one of the best ports or remasters or remakes of the year. So it wins the Back for Seconds award for 2022. Our next award is the Chef's Kiss, which is a particularly good indie title or first game from a certain developer that I played and loved. There is one that slightly beats it out if I were to list my favorite indie games or top indie games of the year. One or two that beat them out, but you'll hear about them later in the show. This particular one I wanted to reserve for a game that needs more attention. It doesn't take long. It took me about 2 or 3 hours in a full sit-through. The gameplay that it presents to you is very unique. The way that it has you do the tasks within it is novel. It's a lot of fun. The music is great. And the overall story that it tells is something very, not only interesting, but prescient in the world today. Very very timely, let's say. It's an interesting allegory. And that is The Case of the Golden Idol. If you have not played this, it is a little murder mystery where you see a moving scene that moves in a loop of someone dying, whether that's being killed by somebody else or what have you. And you click on different things in the scene in the investigator mode, and it adds words to your word bank on the bottom, and then you have another page where you can put the pieces together from the word bank and create what actually happened here. You'll get words for the description of the scene. Sometimes you'll have to fill in who's who. You'll get names, and you'll have to fill in the names of each of the people who were involved. You'll get all kinds of different puzzles. It gets progressively harder with every case, adding new elements as the game goes on. But it's something very, 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 very cool, very, very interesting, and a game that really, really hooked me in mid-October when it launched. Really, really gave me a great run. And I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. It's not expensive. It's on Steam, I think, for like $15 or something like that. Doesn't take up a lot of power in your PC because of how it runs and the way the game is. So if you have an older PC that only gets 1080p or whatever, or it's not the most upgraded PC, this should still run. I don't really think it's going to have that much of an issue, but definitely worth it. Definitely worth your time. Check it out. Go check it out. Next up, we have the Extra Cheese, my favorite DLC of the year. This is a weird category because I didn't play a whole lot of extra chapters. I talked about Disney Dreamlight Valley. They had a couple extra missions with a couple extra people join, Scar and Buzz and Woody and stuff like that. But I'm talking about a full DLC chapter that I played from beginning to end. And if we're including the broader, release on more consoles for this game, I would love to highlight it. And that is Bugsnax, the Isle of Big Snacks from April earlier this year. I love Bugsnax. I have played it multiple times. The game always interests me every single time I play it. So then when it came out for Xbox and Switch and all the other consoles, I went back in because this time it was coming with extra DLC, the Isle of Big Snacks, which on the surface is just more Bugsnax. For me, that's fine, but it doesn't really add much more to the overall gameplay feel other than the monsters are big and you have to shrink them before you catch them. That's really the main hook. It's everything surrounding that and how the story is added to and how previous characters who weren't so interesting are now very interesting, and stuff like that I think makes this game, makes this DLC better. It's not just what was advertised, it's the little extra things afterwards that were not advertised that made me go, huh, I see where they're going with this. I'm curious to find out what's next for this game and this franchise. Now, this is a company that does not usually dabble in sequels or anything like that. Their previous game, Octodad, was a single game, and I don't really know what else they had besides that. No offense to them. I know I'm forgetting something. So I don't know if they're going to continue this. They're going to make something different and come back to it. I don't know. But I hope they do, and I hope they do soon, because Isle of Baked Snacks just made me more intrigued by the world of Bug Snacks, and that's why it's winning the Extra Cheese Award for the best, or for my favorite DLC of the year. And it's extra cheese, so it's appropriate. Bug Snacks, all that good stuff. Next up, we have Missed Meal. That's a game that came out this year that I did not have enough time with, so it's not going to rank in the top 10. And that's Elden Ring. Sorry, guys. Elden Ring is not going to be in my top 10 because I played maybe an hour of it. I don't think I got the full experience, just because I had limited time and I didn't really have the ability to dig into a game that is going to continually murder me. I haven't had a chance to go back to it yet. I may do so on the holiday break, which may, coax my feelings in a certain direction, but I am considering it a missed meal because I only, like I said, played an hour or two of it. I don't think it's enough to get the whole scenario. So warning you now, Elden Ring does not feature in the top 10 because I did not complete it, and I don't think that's fair. So as much as I love what I'm seeing of it, the soundtrack is incredible. The gameplay I did get was engaging, if not frustrating. But it's supposed to be frustrating. I just haven't gotten to that point yet where it's supposed to click. So once it clicks, we'll see how I feel. But right now, it's a missed meal. Elden Ring. Sorry. I am sorry. And finally, the final specialty award of this first segment is tomorrow's main course, my most anticipated game of 2023. This award has gotten much more difficult in the last couple of weeks with all the cool things being revealed. But ultimately, the answer is very simple. That's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild is still a masterpiece from the last 5 years, 6 years by the time the next game comes out, more than 6 years. I still go in and dabble every once in a while. I've completed both DLCs. I just love getting lost in that game. You always find something new, you always find something different. And I'm hoping that Tears of the Kingdom has that ability as well. I will say it finds itself in a precarious position. Being a sequel to such a revolutionary game carries with it, I would say, an extra burden of weight, a weight of burden. Do I think they can figure it out? Absolutely. But it'll just be interesting to see how this game comes out. I know I'll be playing it day one, if not sooner. Cross your fingers. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, tomorrow's main course, my most anticipated game of 2023. So there you go. Those are your specialty Wiz Wit Awards in this first segment. Disney Dreamlight Valley's 2,000 Calorie Diet. Street Fighter 6 reveal from State of Play in June is The Perfect Bite. Musical Morsel is Metal Hellsinger. Back for Seconds is Atari 50. The Chef's Kiss, Case of the Golden Isle. Extra Cheese, Bug Snacks, The Isle of Baked Snacks. Missed Meal, Elden Ring, sorry again. And tomorrow's main course, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Coming up after the break, we will get into 10 through 6 of my top 10 games of 2022. We're talking mobile, we're talking indie, we're talking AAA. All three of those are represented in the bottom half of my list and in the top half now of the list as well. That's pretty cool. All right, stick around. All right, welcome back to episode 120 of Cheese Steaks and Controllers, the Wiz Wit Awards for 2022. Running down my top 10 games of 2022 now. The specialty awards were in the first segment. Coming in at number 10, my biggest surprise with this one is how low it is on the list. After it was first revealed and throughout all of its, marketing cycle, I expected it to be higher, but things held it back, and we'll get into that. That's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet coming in at number 10. Technical issues are too proliferated, like they're too common to be ignored. It's that simple. They're too common to be ignored, They do affect gameplay, not so much that it kills the experience. It is still my top 10 game of the year, number 10 top 10 game of the year, after all. But it is pretty jarring that a game made by a company like Game Freak and the pedigree that it has would come out with such disarray, right? I mean, it's not even like the online connecting that works. It's just the slowdowns, the frame issues, things popping in and out of frame at times. Handheld, especially on a core Switch, is brutal. I don't understand what happened here, but the problem is, and the reason why it ranks, is because when it does work, when you do have a stretch where things are going fine and you have a mission that you want to do and you're dedicated and you can put that time in, it's incredible. Open world Pokemon is best Pokemon. This is the way Pokemon should have been for years, and we finally have it. It's in a technical mess. It's the equivalent of one of those things where you have to get the ball through the trap in order to get the money in the gift, where getting there is frustrating, but persevering is well worth it. It's an awesome, awesome Pokemon title. I'm hoping they can continue to tweak and fix and make it the game it deserves to be, because man, is it fun when it's pumping. The gym battle situation, storyline is fun. The Titans are fun. The Team Star bases are fun. Everything is awesome in the game. It's just, there are a lot of technical hiccups to get over in order to get there, but not enough technical hiccups to make it out of my top 10 for 2022. It just comes in right at the wire at number 10. Number 9 is one that will hurt your jaw just as much as it'll hurt your fingers as you're playing if you play for too long in one session, and that's because you'll be laughing so much if you're like me and you appreciate this type of humor. Number 9 is High on Life. The most recent release on the list, coming out only 2 weeks ago, and man, this one's fun. It's just, you can tell when you're playing a game and the developing team behind it was just having fun, right? You can tell when a game is, for lack of a better term, soulless, AAA, just churning it out to make money. It doesn't have any personality to it. It's just a game to play. High on Life is not that. It is brimming with personality, brimming with style, brimming with hilarious sections and rants and all this other stuff. You only have to be a fan, or at least willing to tolerate, Justin Roiland's humor, Rick and Morty, Solar Opposites, so on and so forth. If you're into that, or if it doesn't bother you that much, you have a Metroid Prime caliber first-person game here. Backtracking, jetpacks, all that cool stuff. If you don't like his humor, it's probably going to be a non-starter because it is ever-present. The ranting gun, while funny, is a ranting gun. And it doesn't shut up at times. You can tweak these things, but they didn't really tweak it as much as I thought it would. But I love that. I love that humor. I'm a big Rick and Morty fan. I watch every episode every time they launch, so it didn't bother me. I was in. But I can understand if it was not your thing. That said, still a great game if you can get over those voices. High on Life, coming in at number 9 on my list. Well worth it. Especially if you have Game Pass and you don't have to pay any extra money for it. It's part of your subscription. It was on day one. Became the most successful third-party Game Pass game ever, which is bonkers to think about and speaks to the quality of this game. Check it out. Make sure you do. It's a heck of a good time. It'll have you high on fun, and it's High on Life at number 9. That was terrible. I'm so sorry. Oh, man. Coming in at number 8, we have our first indie darling. I guess technically High on Life is an indie darling, but it had the AAA backing. This did not. This was just a under-the-radar sort of indie adventure game that I didn't play until, October, November. I was late to this party, but man, am I glad that I jumped in, and that is Norco. Norco is a point-and-click adventure game set in the Southern Gothic aesthetic. You're playing in an alternate version of New Orleans, and there's a major mystery that unravels before you. It's got religious overtones, and there's there's futurist sort of stuff, all packaged in this one incredible story told incredibly well. There's creepy aspects to it. There's funny aspects to it. Some of the twists in the story are presented so incredibly well in the framing that you're dealing with being a point-and-click adventure. It's incredible. The way that they present this is very, very cool. And I had a blast playing this. I went through this entire game in a 2-3 hour sitting, and I just could not get enough of it. I played it till 1 a.m. and completed it in that one sitting. I want to go back and play it again to see what I missed, particularly with some achievements that you can do. And like the achievements, while they're not, something that you have to do to complete the story, they're very retro in how complicated they can be to get them. There are achievements that you will miss in your first playthrough, simply because you didn't know how to start the prompt to get them later in the game. There are things that don't unlock until like the final conversation you have, but the conversation could have started in Act 1 and went all the way to Act 3, or Chapter 3, excuse me. That's crazy. I love that they did that. Very King's Quest of them, and I really appreciate that. Great game, Norco is. Make sure you try it. Pretty sure it's still on Game Pass, so you'll have the opportunity to there, but make sure it's on your list, no matter how you want to play it. Norco, number 8 on my top 10 games of 2022. Sticking with indie games for number 7, this one took the entire internet by storm, let alone just me. And how could it not, with the hilarity that ensues when you get yourself all beefed up. Number 7, top 10 game of 2022, Vampire Survivors. I was a doubter. I'm not going to lie to you. I doubted this game. I did not think it was worthy of the press and the hype that it was getting based on the clips that I was seeing shared on social media. I then decided to take the plunge, and I burned 4 hours. That's all it took. 4 hours gone just by booting it up for the first time. The way that this game is designed is so rudimentary at its core, right? It's just pick a guy, try to survive for 30 minutes, gradually get better with your weapons as you go, have fun, boom. It's so simple, it's so basic, but not in the, basic pumpkin spice Ugg boots term, more in the basic, just not a whole lot to it, but goodness gracious, is this the quintessential just one more run sort of game to come out this year. I am a big fan of the garlic power up and creating that giant force field if you power it up enough. Must be harking back to my Italian heritage. But all of the weapons are so cool. Seeing them get powered up over and over again, just turning you into this unassailable monster where enemies can't even get close enough to hit you because you're just barraging them with nonsense. It is incredibly fun. Also on Game Pass right now, both PC and regular, I believe, plus also available on Steam and stuff like that. This should be, if it's not already, on your Holiday 2 playlist. I guarantee you it will last you the whole week if you start it the day after Christmas. There's just new things to discover, new power-ups to find, new enemies to fight, or I guess, repel if you're powerful enough towards the end to just, shoo them away. Awesome stuff. The fact that it was made by, I think, one person named Ponkel is absolutely absurd. And I want to play whatever that person makes from now on, because Vampire Survivors is one hell of a good start. And for number 6, before we take a break to go into our third segment, number 6 is another game that I don't think I heard of until it actually hit, until it actually launched. But my goodness, this has become another, 2,000 Calorie Diet Award eligible game where I play it every single day just to get my stuff in. That's Marvel Snap. If you had said Marvel card games going after Hearthstone, I'd have called you crazy, but goodness me, did Second Dinner Studios nail this game. I love the strategy of it. I love the fact that the character base is based on the comics, not the movies. Not that I don't like the movies, not that I don't think we'll get movie variants in the future, but the enormity of the hero list in this game cannot be understated. There are Marvel superheroes that I have never even heard of, let alone, been familiar with in the last 5-6 years or so. And they're all here. They're all here. Any Marvel superhero you can think of is here in this game doing something. They may not get unlocked until later, but they're here. And the way that they interact with each other, the different deck strategies that you can build, the way that you can just annoy people or build your guys up into, unassailable giants, just whatever. It's so much fun and so strategic and so incredible, and I highly recommend you check it out. It is free to play. There are obviously in-game purchases, but none that have to be made. I don't think I've made a single one other than a battle pass since I started playing, and it's just something that needs to be on your radar. No ifs, ands, or buts. Check out Marvel Snap. Number 6 on my countdown for the top 10 games of 2022, and we will return just after the break with the top 5 games. Top 5 games of the year. Wiz Wit Awards 2022 rolling right along. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode 120, the Wiz Wit Awards 2022, giving out my choices for the best games of the year. Starting with number 5. So let's recap here real quick. In the first segment of the show, I went over my specialty awards. Disney Dreamlight Valley as the 2,000 calorie diet, or the game I played every day. The Perfect Bite, my favorite trailer. Street Fighter 6 reveal from State of Play in June. Musical Morsel, a top gaming soundtrack from the year, is Metal Hellsinger. Back for Seconds, one of the a top compilation or remaster or remake from the year. It's Atari 50. The Chef's Kiss, an indie game that should be on your radar, a top indie game I wanted to honor. That's The Case of the Golden Idol. Extra Cheese, a top DLC from the year that you should play. It's Bug Snacks, The Isle of Big Snacks. Missed Meal, a game in 2022 that I didn't play enough to give an award. That's Elden Ring. Sorry, one more time. And then tomorrow's main course, the most anticipated game for me in the next year, is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We also went through, in the second segment, the bottom half of my top 10. Number 10, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Number 9, High on Life. Number 8, Norco. Number 7, Vampire Survivors. Number 6, Marvel Snap. With number 5, we're getting retro. Top 5 games. Here we go. Number 5 on the list was one that called right back to young, impressionable Jason in the early 90s, late 80s. An absolute blast to play from pillar to post. A blast from the past, I should say, from pillar to post. And that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I cannot tell you how much fun I had with this game over the summer. It was an absolute retro romp. I felt like I was in the arcades again, playing old school Ninja Turtles and Turtles in Time and all of that. The way that they captured that element, they captured that feeling of old school retro Turtles is completely beyond me. I don't know how they did it, but it feels like it belongs in the pantheon of retro Turtles games. The fact that there are other characters besides the Turtles that are playable, April and Splinter and another guy who I won't spoil in case you're going to play it. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. I like the story, too. I like the final boss is what it is. There's also a nice harken back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time in that final boss phase. That was really, really cool. Just loved every second of this game. It's really hard to pick a specific moment because it's all so, so good. Make sure Shredder's Revenge is on your radar, whether or not you're a retro player or not, because the modern sensibilities are also just as good to earn your time. So please check it out. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, number 5 on the countdown, top 10 games of 2022. Sticking with animals now for number 4, but kind of in a different way. Instead of, bombastic retro brawling, we're getting into feline-based stealth. Number 4 on my list of the top 10 games of 2022 is Stray. I love this game for the environmental storytelling, where it tells you a story, but it's not very direct with it. So there are certain points where you can, fill in your own blanks. I love the ambiguous ending, which could go any one of a million ways should they decide to revisit this universe again. And I love the cat. I love the tech of the cat. I love the things that the cat does. I love that it can meow on command. Just press a button and it meows. I love that that the story is not so, obtuse that you don't understand what's happening, but also not so obvious that you're like, wow, they're really spoon feeding me this story. It's right down the middle, told exceptionally well. Blue 12, the studio that developed it, should be very, very proud of themselves, as I imagine they are. Definitely a game, if you're a PlayStation player or PC player, that needs to be on your list. Stray was wonderful. And again, that ambiguous ending, we don't know what's going to happen or if they're even going to follow up with it. But, man, is this a really, really cool indie title that you should check out. Really caught me by surprise how much I would like it. From the first trailer, it was something I wanted to try, to play. But I didn't really think how much it would grasp me when the time came. So Stray, number 4 on the list of the Wiz Wit Awards top 10 games of 2022. All right, number 3, let's get AAA. AAA, huge project from earlier this year. It came out all the way back in February, and that's Horizon Forbidden West. I simply love this universe. I love the way it's presented. I love the way it's been cultivated. I love the lore that's in it, the stories that are in it, the combat that's in it. Playing this game was an absolute gem. It really was. I had the good fortune to review it back in February. And if you want to know just how much I liked this game that I was playing for a review, one of the 2 full weeks, I think it was 2 full weeks they gave us to review this game. One of them, I was on a family vacation for the entire week. And I was afraid that in doing this, I would fall behind. Luckily, the place where we went had Wi-Fi, and I have an iPad Mini 6, so I brought a spare DualSense with me to see if this would work, booted up the PS5 Remote Play app on the iPad, connected to the Wi-Fi in the place that we were. The Wi-Fi then was able to connect me to my console at my desk, at my house, and I was able to continue the game and continue my review. That's bonkers. Nobody in their right mind would do that, but I like this game enough. I mean, I was reviewing it too, but I like this game enough to keep pressing on and take every free moment to check out more and fight more machine monsters, learn more about the world. The ending is absolutely bonkers. It's a weird twist in a story that I did not see coming, and I don't know how it's going to pan out in the third. I don't know if this is going to suffer from trilogy sickness or not, but man, is this game great. The open world has so much stuff to do. The characters themselves are super interesting. I'm a big Erin fan myself. Aloy, too, obviously, is great. Just a very, very wonderful game made by a very talented team. And now with the DLC coming out in April, I'll be able to jump back in and see what's going on in the volcanic Hollywood that the game is seeming to establish. But just an absolute delight. I love games that come out to a lot of hype and live up to them, and Horizon was able to do that. Hence why it's number 3 on my list. Number 2, my second favorite game of 2022. This one's going to raise some eyebrows. If you know me, I feel like you kind of know what's coming, right? If you don't, I'm going to say this game, and you're going to be like, what is he on, and can I have some? But I have played this game every day, most days, since August, or July, when this first, quote-unquote, dropped. I have always been engaged. It has never lost me. The things that it's added have kept me going, and I've invested a lot of time into it, to the point where it's slowly becoming one of my favorite games of all time. That's where I'm at here. The longevity of how long I've played is what puts this in the number 2 slot. It's not necessarily better than Horizon or Stray, but how long I've dedicated to it is what puts it in number 2. That's Multiverses. Multiverses is my second favorite game of this year. I love it. I was a big Smash Brothers fan anyway, so that probably colors a little bit of my opinion here. But the character roster is absolutely absurd. You're pulling from Scooby-Doo and the Iron Giant and Space Jam and Looney Tunes, DC Comics, Gremlins, which nobody has watched since the 80s. The fact that they're pulling all these franchises into one game and just letting them duke them out with original movesets that fit the characters, it's just a lot of fun, right? It's a lot of silly, goofy fun. Again, the kids like it. The kids, this is the only exposure to Rick and Morty I'll give them. They really like Mr. Meeseeks, so I'll send a bunch of Meeseeks out and they'll laugh and go, Mr. Meeseeks, look at me. So I'm able to get the kids into it, not to mention they know who Wonder Woman is and Superman is, and stuff like that. The variant costumes are really, really cool. Just everything about this game boggles my mind. But it's so much fun. I have so much fun playing it, listening to them quip back and forth to each other, and the stages they continue to add. The Game of Thrones stage is worthy of Smash Brothers. It is such a good stage with one of the best single game tracks of the year. What they were able to do to the Game of Thrones theme in this game, both versions of it, the regular mid-fight one and the one when there's only one life remaining for one side, both versions are just knockouts. So very good. But ultimately, that's what brought me to this being my second favorite game of the year. The fact that I was able, it basically inserted itself into my daily gaming regiment, which I used to be dominated by Fortnite, right? I'd play Fortnite, do my dailies, and then, go on to whatever game I'm reviewing or whatever. But now I have Fortnite, I have Disney Dreamlight Valley, I have Fall Guys, and I have this. And this crept up very quickly into being a game that I need to play every day. So with that in mind, and obviously we're still in open beta, the official launch hasn't happened yet, so things could change for the worse. They could make a bunch of weird bonehead decisions that makes me, back off of this. But right now, where I'm sitting, for me personally, remember, this is my list, I had the second most fun, and the game that had the second most impact on me this year is Multiverses. It's hard to deny. It's an incredible game, only getting better, and I look forward to whatever they have coming out in the future. I'm going to take this time now to request Nathan, I said Nathan Detroit. No, it's not Guys and Dolls. Nathan Explosion from Death Clock, Metalocalypse. I understand there's a movie coming. I was at the concert in August. Perfect tie-in. He's in your wheelhouse. Do it. Mordhouse would be an incredible stage. I'm just saying. All right. No more delaying. Let's get into the end of the list. So, honorable mention first off. These were 3 games that I played through this year that I thought were very good. Just missed the list. They'd be 11, 12, and 13, but ones that I think that you should check out if you have nothing to play this holiday or going into 2023. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion is one of the best remasters ever done. The way that the combat is improved and the visuals are improved, though not as well, not to the same ratio as the combat is improved, but just everything about this it's a perfect port of bringing an older game to these newer consoles. Very clean. Gameplay's great, and I can't recommend it enough. So that's one. Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, that unique Mario & Rabbids franchise, continues to impress. Everybody who's played that I've talked to absolutely loves it. I did too. So that make sure that's on your honorable mention list as well. And then Dying Light 2, Stay Human, also from February. Very cool game. First-person parkour. You got the zombie apocalypse going on. Really like this game. I like the way, for the most part, that the story ran its course. There was some weird stuff at the end that I wasn't really into. The DLC is very good, at least so far. Dying Light 2, Stay Human is one that you should have your eye on. And now we come to number 1. My favorite game of the year, the Wiz Wit Award winner for Game of the Year, the Cheesesteaks and Controllers official Game of the Year 2022, the third ever Cheesesteaks and Controllers Wiz Wit Award winner for Game of the Year 2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake, 2021, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and we now add to the Pantheon the 2022 Game of the Year, as decided by Cheesesteaks and Controllers, God of War Ragnarok. It's hard picking anything else. I did flip-flop between Ragnarok and Multiverses. I really did. Just because of how much I spent playing Multiverses. But ultimately, the way that this story impacted me is what pushes me over the edge. I like the improved combat, although it's not as improved as you would think. It's very much a if it ain't broke, don't fix it scenario, but I would have liked to have seen more variety in the combat itself. But the story and the way that these characters are portrayed, they are worthy of every award that they are nominated for and they receive. Christopher Judge's nuanced when it needed to be, subtle when it needed to be, bombastic when it needed to be performance of this character in Kratos is phenomenal. Sonny Soljic as Atreus, it's a star-turning performance. Richard Schiff as Odin is a beautiful surprise, and I believe the story goes that Richard was going to turn it down or not even pay it any mind until his son or nephew or some family member told him to take the job, damn it, and it ended up being to all of our benefits because he plays Odin incredibly well, incredibly unique interpretation of the character that I absolutely love. But ultimately, the reason this game will stick with me forever, and I consider it my game of the year this year, is because I'm a dad too, right? If you follow me, if you're friends with me, you know I'm a dad. And the story that it tells of the core conflict of parent and child, where child wants to go out and see the world and contribute, and parent doesn't think they're ready yet. Obviously, this was a big thing in the first game, but here it's magnified 100%. There's, the kid sneaking out to do his own thing. There's going behind the parent's back to look for things that ends up, coming back to haunt them. I cannot tell you how many times there was a situation where my parent would go to a parent-teacher conference and they would find out about some dumb thing that I did and come back and have a conversation with me when I just didn't tell them. So the whole part in the beginning where Odin and Thor are like, hey, Atreus, stop looking for Tyr. And Kratos just kind of looks at him like, you're what? That part, I had flashbacks, right? The arguments that they had, the clashes that they had, but also the way that they made up. And that ending, the way that game ends, and the one particular line by Kratos got me real good, right in the feels. The will go remains line. I'll let you fill in the blanks if you've beaten it. If you haven't, look for that line. It's very hard to miss. The fact that a game starring Kratos, let's not forget the original trilogy that this character was a part of, and the hyper masculinity, the super macho kill everyone sort of thing. I feel like people forget where that character came from to get here. If you had told me in 2010, 2011, or that in a decade's time, a God of War game would bring me to tears, I would have laughed at you. Like, what are you talking about? God of War? Mr. Testosterone over there? How? They gave him a kid. And it flipped the entire game on its head. Flipped his entire character on his head. And while I can't personally relate to this, luckily, thank the stars, his interactions with Faye and the way that he pines for her, I imagine I would be in a very similar boat if something like that were to happen in my life. And again, God forbid, it has not, it will not. Cross my fingers and toes. I'm lucky in that regard, but it just really hit me. And the more I think about it, the more it resonates with me. Also, the multiple quests after the game is over are all phenomenally written. Some of the best writing in the game is after the credits. So make sure you stick around for all that. The soundtrack, Bear McCreary is a wizard. Every soundtrack he ever makes is insane. In fact, while we're talking about the gentleman, I want to bring up his 2022 output, and you tell me that he is not having the year of his life when it comes to, composing music. So for television in this year, he did Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and The Witcher, Blood Origin. He also was the Walking Dead composer, which ended this year. He also does Outlander, if you're watching that, Snowpiercer, and Foundation, if you watch those shows. He did C as well, which I believe ended this year. God of War Ragnarok. The man is unstoppable. He's unstoppable. And this soundtrack is one of my favorites that he ever did. Everything about it, I cannot say enough. The writing, the action, the character portrayals, the character development, the story beats, the music. It's just the total package for me. And it's why God of War Ragnarok takes its place in the Cheesesteaks and Controllers Wiz Wit Awards Game of the Year triumvirate, joining Cloud Strife and Star-Lord, becoming the first ever non-Square Enix game in this podcast's 3-year history to win Game of the Year. Congratulations to Sony Santa Monica for making such a wonderful game. If any of you in that studio were to hear this, this little podcast talking about how great your game was, just want to say thank you for making it. Thank you for giving us the gift of your technical prowess with the way the game looks, your narrative team led by Matt Sophos, who wrote an incredible story. The actors that portrayed all these characters were all phenomenal. I did not mention Ryan Hurst as Thor. I should do that because he was great. It was awesome. It really, really was. And I don't know where this story goes from here. My prediction would be Kratos DLC, Atreus full game if they decide to go the DLC route, just based on how it ends. And that will make sense when you beat it. I loved it. And that's why it's my personal Game of the Year in 2022. But do not be afraid to tell me your picks for 2022. If you like the idea of my awards, I am going to tweet a thread of all of these award winners. If you see a tweet and there's a award idea that you like, tell me yours. Tell me your favorite soundtrack of the year that you would give me the musical morsel. Your favorite trailer, The Perfect Bite. Your favorite remaster, remake, or compilation in the back for seconds. Your top 10. Your favorite DLC. The one game from this year you want to play. I did say mine was Elden Ring, but Kirby and the Forgotten Land is there too. What's your most anticipated game of 2023? What's tomorrow's main course for you? Tell me these things. Also recommend me games that I may have missed. I am but one person. If I missed Elden Ring, you can imagine that I missed a ton of smaller games that I should be playing. I know there are already a bunch on my Game Pass list. Paradise Killer's there. There's a couple other ones. Share them with me. I love expanding my horizons. This is the week to do it. So if you have a shorter game that I can knock out a couple of days or even in one sitting, let me know. If there's a longer adventure game that I shouldn't be waiting on anymore, let me know. Share with me yours. It's my favorite time of year where we all talk about the things that made us the most happy throughout 2022. And I look forward to another fantastic year of video games. And boy, howdy, is it shaping up to be a monster one coming up in the coming year. But with that, we are at the end of episode number 120 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to my voice. And if you are hearing these words, you have reached the end of the episode, which means that I am eternally grateful that you have spent this time with me today. I hope you learned something. I hope you were entertained. I hope you now know games that you might not have played before that you might want to go play. I imagine Norco will be on that list for a few people who may have missed it. But ultimately, I hope you enjoyed this episode, whether you agree with my awards or not. And tune in next week when I talk about the things I'm most looking forward to in 2023. Not just Zelda. We'll talk about some other things going into next year. In the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic holiday weekend. I hope you have a brilliant holiday season, no matter what you're celebrating, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or Sunday, or Monday. I hope you have an even better week right behind it. If you're off work, I hope you're relaxing, doing your thing. And I will be back next Friday with the 2023 preview show right here on Cheesesteaks and Controllers. Goodbye.